Every woman you're about to meet lived in plain sight. Neighbors trusted them. Their own children called them Mum, their husbands Honey. None of them looked like what they were. And that's the part that should frighten you. Part 1 showed you what greed looks like dressed as grief. Part 2 shows you what it looks like when it almost works. 8 cases. Subscribe before we start. We're working toward our first 1,000 subscribers, and this channel is just getting started. Case 1. Angelina Rodriguez. Frank Rodriguez came home from work one evening in the summer of 2000 with an upset stomach he couldn't explain. He'd been sick for days, nausea, vomiting, the kind of illness that sends you to the hospital but doesn't show up cleanly on any test. His wife had been making his meals. What she'd been putting in them was oleander, a plant toxic enough to stop a heart, and Frank had survived it. Then she loosened the gas line on the dryer and left town. That failed too. The third method was antifreeze in his Gatorade, a lethal dose the color and sweetness of the drink helped hide. Frank died at 3:19 in the morning on September 9, 2000. There was so much antifreeze in his body that it left a mark even investigators couldn't ignore. Angelina called the insurance company that same day. The $250,000 policy, taken out 2 months before his death, at her insistence, was waiting. The insurer told her no money would be released until a cause of death was established. So Angelina did something that would eventually destroy her. She pushed for more testing. She even told detectives she'd received an anonymous tip suggesting they check for antifreeze. Cell phone records showed no such call had come in. The testing found what she'd put there, and then investigators went further back. In 1993, Angelina's 13-month-old daughter Alicia had died after allegedly choking on a pacifier nipple. An expert report, commissioned by Angelina's own lawyer, concluded the nipple could not have broken off during normal feeding. 2 months before Alicia died, Angelina had taken out a $50,000 policy on her without her husband's knowledge. She then sued the pacifier manufacturer and collected $710,000. Justice Ming Chin of the California Supreme Court later wrote that after her daughter died, Angelina seemed more concerned with collecting the pacifier parts and filing the lawsuit than with losing her child. The judge who sentenced her said he had never, in 20 years on the bench, seen a colder heart. She was sentenced to death in 2004, resentenced to life without parole in 2024. At her original sentencing, she challenged the judge directly. Would your wife be able to hand you a cup of antifreeze? Frank Rodriguez was a special education teacher. He spent his days helping children no one else wanted to work with. He had been married 4 months. Case 2. Teresa Lewis. She met them in a Walmart line, not through criminal connections, not through anyone she'd known for years, just 2 young men, Matthew Schallenberger and Rodney Fuller, standing ahead of her in a checkout queue in rural Virginia. Within weeks, she was sleeping with Schallenberger. Within months, all 3 of them had a plan. The plan required 2 deaths. Her husband Julian, 51 years old, and her stepson Charles, 25, a National Guard member who had taken out a $250,000 life insurance policy before his anticipated deployment to Iraq. Julian was the primary beneficiary. But Teresa had already done the arithmetic. If both men died, the money came to her, so both men had to die. On the night of October 30, 2002, Teresa Lewis got into bed with her husband and waited. She had left the front door unlocked. Schallenberger and Fuller came through it. Schallenberger shot Julian with a shotgun, multiple blasts. At the other end of the trailer, Fuller shot Charles. Charles died immediately. Julian did not. He was left to bleed out slowly while Teresa lay in the same house. She told police an intruder had done it. When confronted, she broke down and gave them everything. The judge who sentenced her called her the mastermind. The 2 men who pulled the triggers received life. Teresa Lewis received death because the murders had been her idea, her financing, her unlocked door. Her IQ tested as low as 72. Schallenberger's was 113, from prison before he died by suicide in 2006. Schallenberger wrote that he had sized Teresa up the moment he met her as someone not too bright who could be easily manipulated. He wrote that the only reason he slept with her was to get her to fall in love with him so she would hand over the insurance money. 2 Supreme Court justices voted to spare her life. The governor of Virginia received 7,300 clemency petitions. He denied them all. Teresa Lewis was executed on September 23, 2010, the first woman executed in Virginia since 1912. Her last words were for her stepdaughter Kathy, who watched from behind a two-way mirror. "I want Kathy to know that I love her, and I'm very sorry." Virginia abolished the death penalty 11 years later. Teresa Lewis was the last woman the state ever executed. The $250,000 was never paid to anyone. Stacey Castor.
The biggest question I ask is why? Why did she do these things? I know that's probably never going to be answered. There are so many things that she has ruined. She'll never be able to see Bree graduate. My father will never take me down the aisle. She'll never get to see her grandchildren. All those things she took away from me. She killed 2 people and tried to kill me and blame it on me and blame me for the other deaths. I hate my mother for ruining so many people's lives. I didn't even know why she did it. What gave her the right to play God with people?
The suicide note was 750 words long. It confessed to 2 murders, explained the motive, and asked for forgiveness. Stacey Castor had typed it herself on her own computer while her daughter Ashley lay unconscious in the next room. For over 17 hours, she'd tried to force enough vodka and pills into her to kill her. When investigators later compared the note to Castor's own police interview, they found one word that gave everything away. She had spelled antifreeze as anti-free 4 times, the same way she said it out loud when detectives questioned her. Ashley was 15 minutes from death when her sister found her. The attempt on Ashley came days after investigators exhumed the body of Castor's first husband, Michael Wallace, who had died in January 2000 at 38 years old. His death had been ruled a heart attack. Nobody had ordered an autopsy. Castor had been told it was cardiac failure and said that was good enough for her. When forensic pathologists finally examined his remains 7 years later, they found his organs loaded with antifreeze crystals. The sergeant who reviewed the results said they never go away. Once antifreeze kills you, the evidence stays in the tissue indefinitely. Her second husband, David, died in August 2005. Castor told police he had been depressed and drinking heavily, that she had found him unresponsive in the bedroom. The staged scene included a bottle of antifreeze under the bed and a glass of green liquid on the nightstand. In the kitchen trash, investigators found a turkey baster. It contained antifreeze residue and David's DNA. Castor's fingerprints were on the glass. She had also filed a will after David's death, leaving his $300,000 estate entirely to herself. The witnesses who claimed to have watched him sign it later admitted they had lied. The estate went to his son instead. The judge who sentenced her had spent 34 years on the bench. He told the courtroom he had handled serial killers and contract killers throughout his career. He said Stacey Castor was in a class by herself.
People of the State of New York versus Stacey R. Castor, the jury's reached a verdict. As to count number 1, murder in the second degree, what is the verdict?
Guilty.
On count 2, attempted murder in the second degree, what's the verdict?
Guilty.
She was sentenced to 51 years. She died of a heart attack in her cell at Bedford Hills in June 2016, 7 years into her sentence. She was 48 years old. Ashley testified at trial. She told the court her mother had been her best friend. She said she wanted to forgive her, but wasn't sure she could. She said she just wanted one night of sleep without thinking about it. 3 cases in. A woman who poisoned 2 husbands, framed her own daughter, and nearly got away with it because nobody thought to look. If you've made it this far, you already know this series doesn't flinch. These women get remembered. Make sure the people they buried are too. Every like, every comment, every subscribe is how this video reaches someone new and how their names get said again. So do it for them, not for us. Part 3 is already in research, and what we found is quieter and worse than anything in either of these first 2 videos. Drop your city or country below. We read every comment. 5 more cases to go. Case 4. Monica Sementilli. The day before her husband was killed, Monica Sementilli exchanged 180 encrypted messages with her secret lover. Another 95 on the day itself. Then she deleted the app from her phone, drove to Target, and was so distracted she nearly missed her exit. Security cameras caught it. While she was in the store building her alibi, Robert Baker was letting himself through the front door she had left unlocked. Fabio Sementilli was sitting on his backyard patio, his favorite chair, the spot where he unwound after work. Baker came from behind. He never had a chance to defend himself. The attack was fast, close, and overwhelming. He died where he sat. Fabio's daughter came home to a horrifying scene and the realization that her father was gone. Monica's performance in the days that followed was described by a friend as beyond devastating. She couldn't speak in complete sentences until the 4th day. She texted people that she wasn't a wife anymore. At the wake, Baker sat in the exact spot where the killing had happened. Monica was feet away. Then she called the insurance company. The $1.6 million policy went unpaid pending investigation. Monica kept pressing the insurer, pressing investigators, demanding movement on the payout before the case had a direction. That pressure is what gave investigators theirs. They found the affair. They found the encrypted messages. They found the burner phone in her purse. They found Baker's DNA at the scene. 18 months of planning, documented in a messaging app, both of them deleted the same afternoon Fabio died. Baker eventually pleaded no contest and then testified for Monica's defense, claiming he had acted alone, that he murdered Fabio because he wanted Monica for himself, that she had nothing to do with it. Under cross-examination, he admitted he had lied repeatedly, in multiple versions across multiple statements. The jury deliberated 2 days. The judge who sentenced her called her the mastermind, said Baker did not have the intelligence to plan what had been carried out. He sentenced her to life without parole on June 23, 2025. Fabio's son Luigi had described his father as a cup of coffee in the morning, the kind of person who got you determined to charge the mountain of life. His daughter found him in the backyard. His wife had left the door open. Case 5. Wendi Andriano. In the space of 1 hour, Wendi Andriano called 911 twice. The first call came around midnight. She told the dispatcher her husband was dying. When paramedics arrived, she met them at the door and turned them away. Joe had a do not resuscitate order, she said. He had cancer. He wanted to die in peace. The paramedics left. An hour later, she called back. This time she said she had beaten and stabbed her husband to death in self-defense. Joe Andriano was 33, adenoid cystic carcinoma, diagnosed in 1998. 2 years of chemotherapy had left him too weak to stand on his own. Wendi had been his caregiver, and somewhere in those 2 years she had started resenting it. She began frequenting bars. She began having affairs. 6 weeks before she killed him, she tried to take out a $100,000 life insurance policy on him, recruiting a friend to pose as Joe on the phone because he was too sick to speak for himself. No policy was ever issued, but the poison was. Months earlier, Wendi had obtained a lethal poison under a false name and hidden it in a storage unit. She disguised it as ordinary supplements, kept it in the apartment in a bottle labeled herbal supplements. That night, she gave them to Joe. When the poison didn't work fast enough, she made sure he wouldn't survive the night. A violent, prolonged attack the medical examiner called overwhelming. She told police Joe had attacked her. Not one of her friends had ever seen a mark on her or a flicker of fear. Investigators found a woman living a double life while her husband wasted away. The state psychologist testified she was extremely manipulative and had faked a suicide attempt after her arrest to secure better conditions in jail. A jury convicted her of first-degree murder and found the killing especially cruel under Arizona law. She was sentenced to death on December 22, 2004. Here's what makes it unbearable. Joe was already dying. All she had to do was wait, and within months she'd have been his widow, grieving, blameless, and free. She couldn't wait. More than 20 years later, Wendi Andriano is still alive on Arizona's death row at Perryville, where no one has been executed since 2014, given far more time, in the end, than she was ever willing to give the dying man she married. Case 6. Frances Elaine Newton. In March 1987, Frances Newton took out 2 life insurance policies, $50,000 on her husband Adrian, $50,000 on their baby daughter Farah. She signed Adrian's name on his application herself. 1 month later, on April 7th, both of her children and her husband were shot to death in their apartment with a .25 caliber pistol. Alton was 7. Farah was 20 months old. Frances told police she had come home to find them. She said a drug dealer named Charlie had done it. Her husband owed $1,500 and someone had come to collect. Before she called anyone, she took a blue bag from her car and placed it in an abandoned house nearby. Inside the bag was the gun. She made claims on the insurance policies before she was ever charged. The case against her was built on ballistics evidence from the Houston Police Department crime lab, a lab later discredited for flawed and unreliable analysis. The nitrite particles found on her skirt, which prosecutors said proved she had fired a weapon, were destroyed during testing before they could be independently examined. The skirt itself was stored sealed against the victim's bloody clothing, contaminating whatever remained. Her defense attorney interviewed no witnesses before trial. He was later suspended 3 times by the Texas bar and eventually barred from capital cases entirely. 3 jurors from her trial later said they would not have convicted her if they had known the full picture. A sworn statement from a jailhouse informant described a cellmate who boasted of going to the Newton home that night with orders to kill everyone if the money wasn't there. That theory was never investigated. The Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles granted her a reprieve in December 2004. 9 months later, they unanimously refused to recommend clemency. The U.S. Supreme Court declined to intervene on execution day, despite documented doubts about the conviction's reliability. Frances Newton was executed on September 14, 2005. She declined a last meal and made no final statement. As the drugs began flowing, she turned her head toward her family and appeared to mouth something. Then she coughed once, and her eyes closed. She was the first black woman Texas executed since the Civil War, put to death for $100,000 that, in the end, was never paid to anyone. Celeste Beard. In October 1999, 75-year-old Stephen Beard was asleep in his bed when someone walked in and shot him in the stomach with a shotgun. He didn't die. He spent 3 months in the hospital fighting, then went home to recover in the care of his wife, Celeste. In January, a blood clot from the wound finally killed him. By then, Celeste had already spent $321,000 of his money. Stephen was a retired broadcasting executive worth somewhere between $10 and $12 million. He'd lost his first wife of 45 years to cancer. When he married Celeste 16 months later, he gave her a $35,000 monthly allowance and simply wanted her to be happy. She spent his money in torrents, and as the bills mounted, prosecutors said she decided he was worth more to her dead than alive. She found her weapon in a psychiatric hospital. Checked in for depression, she met fellow patient Tracy Tarleton, who fell in love with her. Celeste told Tarleton they could only be together once Stephen was gone. She called it a mercy, said he abused her, that his death would set them both free. First she tried poison, 10 ecstasy pills crushed into his drink, then botulism slipped into a chili hot dog. The old man survived both, so Tarleton carried the shotgun into his bedroom instead. Celeste played the grieving widow beautifully. She spent more than $500,000 in the 2 months after Stephen died. Within 6 months, she remarried. That was the mistake. Tarleton, who had pulled the trigger believing she was loved, had stayed silent through her own arrest, protecting Celeste. Then she read about the wedding in a newspaper, understood she had been used, and called investigators the next morning. Celeste's own twin daughters testified against her. One answered, "I do not remember," 298 times under cross-examination. From jail, Celeste tried to hire a friend to have Tarleton killed before she could testify. That charge added 20 years to her sentence. She was convicted of capital murder in 2003 and sentenced to life. She won't be eligible for parole until 2042. She will be 79 years old. She still insists she's innocent. These days, she says her daughters set her up. Tracy Tarleton was released from prison in 2011. The woman Celeste used walked free over a decade ago. The woman who used her is still inside. The first episode of Snapped, the show that launched 2 decades of true crime television, was about Celeste Beard. She gave the franchise its opening story. Robin Lee Rowe. In the early morning of February 10, 1992, fire tore through an apartment in southwest Boise. By the time crews put it out, they'd found 3 bodies inside. Randy Rowe, 34, his son Joshua, 10, his daughter Tabitha, 8. They died in their sleep of carbon monoxide before the flames ever reached them. Robin Rowe, Randy's wife, the children's mother, was not home. She'd spent the night at a friend's house. She told everyone she had lost her family to a terrible accident. It was not an accident. Someone had disabled the smoke detectors. Someone had cut the power to the upstairs at the circuit breaker so the family sleeping above would never wake. Then someone poured accelerant and lit it. In the weeks before the fire, Robin had taken out 6 life insurance policies on her husband and 2 children, $276,500 in death benefits, her name on every one. The most recent was purchased 17 days before they died, and then detectives learned the thing that turned this from a tragedy into something far worse. This was not the first time Robin Rowe had buried a child and collected a check. In 1980, her 6-year-old son Keith died in a cabin fire in Northern California. His bedroom door had been locked from the outside. An electric heater had been shoved against his blankets. He had tried to reach the window before the smoke overtook him. His death was ruled an accident. Robin collected $28,000. 3 years earlier, in 1977, her 15-month-old daughter died in her crib in New Hampshire, ruled sudden infant death syndrome. Sheriff Gary Rainey, the lead investigator on the 1992 case, believes Robin smothered that baby because she had become a burden. 3 children across 15 years. Each time, a ruling that closed the case. Each time, Robin walked away. So she did it again, and this time she killed everyone she had left. Rainey described the calculation plainly. For her, it was a matter of whether she would rather have the money or her husband and her 2 children. She chose the money. She collected nothing. The insurance companies froze payment when the investigation opened. Robin Rowe was sentenced to death in 1993. More than 30 years later, she is still alive, the only woman on Idaho's death row, in a state now rebuilding its execution chamber for a firing squad, with the new law taking effect in July 2026. She has outlived every person she killed by 3 decades. She is 67 years old. Her children never got to grow up at all. Randy's sister said it plainly. She didn't give them a chance. They didn't get 20 extra years. Before you go anywhere, look at these faces one more time. 8 women the world once called mother, wife, neighbor. Now look past them, at the people who aren't here to tell their side. The husbands, the children, the ones who never got to grow old. They had names. Say one of them below. Because as long as someone's still saying it, they're not forgotten, and every comment is how this story reaches the next person. Which case will you never shake? Tell me, I read every single comment. And part 3, it's worse. Her mother who tried to erase the body, a teacher who sent her teenage lover to kill, a name so cold it made national news. Subscribe, and I'll see you there.